Hi everyone, it's me, David Chen. I'm here with That Joy of Napping. Tonight is Sunday, October 4th. It's 10 p.m. Pacific time. And it is the fourth night since we've learned that President of the United States, Donald Trump, has been diagnosed with COVID-19. We've been doing these broadcasts basically every night since we learned of this news. And I will say, just from my own personal media consumption, most of the podcasts I listen to don't air during the weekends. So I found a shocking dearth of podcasts where people are just talking about this on a daily basis.
I think I noticed the Daily, for instance, that comes out on Friday, I think it's probably recorded late Thursday. And so therefore, because that Donald Trump's diagnosis, he tweeted it at 1 a.m. Eastern time on Friday.
Yeah.
They didn't have a chance. They did a little brief emergency
exactly.
thing.
A bunch of people did a brief emergency podcast. But
on
then
Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday, they typically take off. So a lot has happened since then.
So let's talk about the stuff that's happened in the last 24 hours. The biggest thing I would say that happened this morning is that the president's doctors all gave another assessment of how Trump is doing, right? Did that happen this morning, or was that yesterday?
There was one yesterday and one today. And if you have not seen The Death of Stalin, I beg you to watch it. It is incredibly helpful for these times.
So Dr. Conley and a bunch of the other doctors that were treating Trump gave a very kind of dystopian-esque briefing. It's just you see a bunch of doctors outside. It looked like something you might see from North Korea or something, where you have a bunch of doctors kind of explaining, no, the leader is in very good condition. He said some interesting things, right? He said basically that oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to mess with the timeline, but the short of it is he essentially acknowledged that he was maybe trying to present a rosier picture in order so that the disease wouldn't take a bad course, implying that basically Donald Trump was closely watching what he was saying and he didn't want to discourage Donald Trump's, spirits. Or
maybe, I think the more accurate thing is that if Donald Trump did not like what he heard, he would have flown into a rage, and this would have expended a lot of energy from the patient, and that would have been bad.
Yeah, or that he could have otherwise become agitated, and that would have aggravated his condition.
Little did they know that minutes later on Saturday morning, after Dr. Conley gave his first dystopian briefing, that Mark Meadows, the White House chief of staff, would be the anonymous source that was then outed, that gave a completely contradictory recounting of events, which then made Trump fly into a rage, apparently.
Yeah. So that's something that happened, I guess it was this morning, although it feels like it could have been yesterday. The things that have happened that are kind of... I think overall where we're at right now at this moment on Sunday night is we have no clear picture of how the president's doing, right?
Oh, we have the facts that we have, presuming them to be real, cannot, I think, defy such, just basic logic and our understanding of how this illness is typically treated, that clearly something is up. So even with their unbelievable attempts to disguise and diffuse and downplay, they still have somehow managed to make it worse. And the string of events I'm referring to, the facts, are this. Number one, not 100% clear when he tested positive. I think it's now, has been revealed that he tested positive with the rapid test Thursday around fundraiser time, and then found out for sure with the longer test later that night. But that basically means he went on Sean Hannity while not looking very good and lied that he was feeling fine. It's not clear if there was an earlier positive test than that, because they won't say when his last negative test was. Mm-hmm. But so that, let's just say we go with it and we say Thursday is when they knew he was sick. Friday had some dips in oxygen levels and the introduction of an experimental drug. Do you remember that? Yeah, that was like just a couple days ago. So the first day we really heard about it, there was an experimental drug. And then the second day was when they added remdesivir, which is for more severe-ish cases, and it's meant to like either shorten the duration of your illness or reduce the likelihood that you die. And then the third day today is when we found out he also has dexamethasone. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah. So there is an article in the New York Times called "Trump's Treatment Suggests Severe COVID-19 Medical Experts Say." Right. So dexamethasone is a steroid used to head off an immune reaction, an immune system overreaction that kills many COVID-19 patients. Generally, according to this New York Times article, when someone is prescribed dexamethasone, they are what you would describe as a severe or extremely severe patient. Like they are like in imminent danger. Right. So that means one of two things. Either Trump is in fact in imminent danger, or his doctors are prescribing him drugs against his best interests, right?
And I think there is a question, especially with that experimental drug on the first day, like that it feels like so irresponsible, that first choice, that like, is he just like demanding whatever he wants?
Give me one of everything.
Yeah.
So according to Dr. Thomas McGinn, physician-in-chief at Northwell Health, the largest healthcare provider in New York State, the dexamethasone is the most mystifying of the drugs we're seeing him being given at this point. Suddenly, they're throwing the kitchen sink at him. It raises the question, is he sicker than we're hearing, or are they being overly aggressive because he is the president in a way that could be potentially harmful? Skipping forward down this article, some experts raise an additional possibility that the president is directing his own care and demanding intense treatment despite risks he may not fully understand. The pattern even has a name, VIP syndrome, which describes prominent figures who receive poor medical care because doctors are too zealous in treating them or defer too readily to their instructions. It really feels like the latter. There's a strong possibility that that's true.
Right. I think it's a bit irresponsible, specifically with the dexamethasone, to give it to people that don't have pretty severe symptoms. And the problem is Walter Reed is a military hospital, so everyone's in the military chain of command, and this person is the commander-in-chief. Yeah. So he can order them to do, like, it could be dexamethasone into the eyeballs every 15 minutes, and they'd have to do it.
Yeah, and as we already discussed in, like, night one of our conversations, it's hugely irresponsible, both because he is the president of the United States, and like it or not, he does have a lot of responsibility. So we shouldn't be like testing out drug treatments on him like he's a guinea pig. That's bad. But the second thing is also that like other people will be like, well, the president got dexamethasone after. I mean,
you saw these people like basically doing the equivalent of drinking bleach after he, suggested.
Yes, people have done all kinds of crazy things based on what he has said. So the fact that he's asking for dexamethasone and getting it, and people will now ask for it as well, even if it's not in their best interest, like the whole thing is very, very reckless and irresponsible, like as we have come to expect. But that doesn't even get us to what happened later on in the day.
Wait, can we? Okay. I just think that there is no way to... There are two or three ways, I guess, that we could attempt to square the idea that he's on this very aggressive treatment and that he went to the hospital and that he's doing great and it's all great and he is ready to go back to the campaign trail and he could be released tomorrow. And my guess is he will be released tomorrow. My guess is they have built an incredible medical facility in the past 48 to 72 hours that is even more aggressive with all the ventilators you could ask for, so that he can go quietly and unobservedly potentially be ravaged by this disease. And it won't raise as many questions. Now, of course, it's going to raise questions every hour or so until like he really does seem back to his regular health, which I do hope and I think is the most likely outcome if he doesn't derail his own health through VIP syndrome, which is a great term. I've never heard it before. You can totally picture that happening though. But I think the tone that I've seen from media coverage trying to square this, because it's like they don't know which path to take and they don't particularly want to pick an interpretation, is that there are alarming signals. Yeah. And so like they don't want to say it's all well. They don't want to say it's all terrible.
Which is honestly not my interpretation. Like I actually happen to think my current belief is that he's probably going to be fine. He might have like some bad symptoms leading up to that, but like he's probably going to be fine. But I do think the VIP syndrome, like when I heard it, I'm like, oh, it's snapping into place. Like that's what is actually happening here, because that's why he's literally just like getting every single viral therapy possible. Now he did appear in a video today, right?
So this is the other thing.
Another proof of life video, where he basically said, "Hey, things are going great, and I'm gonna go. I've learned a lot about COVID in the last couple days, like real knowledge, not knowledge of reading the books. And I'm gonna go out and surprise some of my supporters outside." And that led to this photograph being taken in the New York Times. In the headline, "As Trump seeks to project strength, doctors disclose alarming episodes," which is a challenging headline. So I think that a couple reactions to this photo and everything about this. First thing is, I think a lot of people have been talking about how theoretically he's endangering the people, the Secret Service people, the medical staff, like all the people that are part of this. Like you can see in the photo that I'm putting on the screen right now, the people in the front of the vehicle are using like industrial grade shit on their face, and like he has like the cloth mask, and it's because they're in a hermetically sealed vehicle with the President of the United States. And who knows, those people may need to quarantine afterwards. His people have said that like everyone signed off on it and they said this is safe, but whatever. I mean,
yeah. I actually think it's amazing. When Twitter, I know Twitter like chooses what to serve you and when, but for my Twitter like search, there are 897,000 tweets about Secret Service. Like I've never seen anything with that number of tweets. And if I opened Twitter and saw that, I would think the Secret Service failed and they allowed the president to be killed. But in fact, it is that the president might be killing the Secret Service.
Yes. Like he is theoretically endangering them. And for what? Not because he needs to get to the hospital, but to take a little victory lap around and say like, hey, I'm doing fine, everyone.
No, the vanity, the hubris, he is a person who's like congenitally bored and just loves the idea of well-wishers. And, like you can totally see why this would happen. I think what is like so depressing is the Secret Service apparently, had a lot of morale issues even prior to this. And in every administration, it's largely like actually a pretty boring job. And like prestigious but boring at the same time. Then in this administration, particularly during the COVID era, it feels like they've been treated very, very cavalierly, especially as they've decided to go back out onto the campaign trail. And there are unnamed sources, I think, in the Post that are within the Secret Service talking about how disgusted they are by this. And I thought it was quite interesting. Melania Trump was not willing to get into a car and go to the hospital to see him because it would expose the people that she would have to interact with along the way. And say what you want to about Melania Trump, and we can come back to this. But having listened to the tapes that were leaked, while they're not flattering to her, I do actually think she has some reasonable points to make along the way. I mean, I don't think she's as callous as he is. I don't think she is completely empty of a human being as he is.
I think the point you're making is basically that like even Melania Trump recognized the humanity of the Secret Service and knew that like it wasn't worth recklessly endangering their lives for,
or at a minimum, the optics are terrible. Like this is actually not good for him. So like maybe he gets the brief endorphin high of like seeing people and waving to them. But
well, yeah, and that's another thing is like from a PR perspective, this photo is terrible. Like this photo, when you look at it, does not project strength. It projects catastrophe. Like
yes.
it doesn't look like, oh, that's a president who's got everything under control. Look at it. It looks terrible. And a lot of people
you tell me, like when you say look at it, what are you seeing?
Well, it's just the president ill because of a virus that he's ignored that's now ravaging his insides, wearing a mask inside of a vehicle, and then like kind of like reaching out, like, this hand gesture that's like kind of like, hi, it's not like to use his own metrics. Like, I don't think this like really lands what he's trying to land. A lot of people have compared this to the image of President George W. Bush looking out a plane window at the at Katrina's devastation, and like that photo was actually like very politically damaging for him. And people are foreseeing that like this one will be similarly damaging. Who knows? But yeah.
So I don't know if you saw that Mary Trump, the estranged niece who is suing the Trump family for her share of the inheritance. And now that we've seen the tax returns, I really get why. She did an interview with NPR and talked about the role of illness and how it was perceived in the family. So I'd love to read a little bit from it.
Please.
So this is excerpts from an NPR interview again with Mary Trump. She said, "First of all, what's fascinating is I had no idea that my great-grandfather had died during the 1918 flu pandemic until she had read about it. And Donald also seems to have forgotten about that, which is incredible considering it's a pretty fascinating historical detail in the family. It was driven, but basically the fact that the family's very uncomfortable with illness was driven by the fact that my grandfather was never sick, ever, until in the late 80s. He had a tumor removed, but then he was completely fine. And then many years later, when he was suffering from Alzheimer's, he had a hip replacement, but wasn't really aware of much of what was going on. So between that and my grandfather's adherence to Norman Vincent Peale's power of positive thinking, which he took to such an extreme level that it was toxic because it left no room for expressions of what he considered negativity of any kind, sadness, despair, being physically ill. So my grandmother, with her osteoporosis, would come home from the hospital and need more care and physical therapy. And my grandfather was unable to tolerate it. He'd be in the room with her, and as soon as she started showing that she was in physical pain, he would say, "Everything's great, right? Everything's great." And he'd leave the room, which I think is so vivid of a portrait of dysfunction, and that even this very, very sad image of not a very well person, to your point, that is not really projecting strength, is still better to him than the alternative.
Yeah.
And he fundamentally cannot stop sort of tweeting and trying to demonstrate with doctored photos and, edited videos this image of strength. He just can't stop himself.
Yeah, I mean, you say it like that, but on the other hand, it is like I do think like legitimately it is politically damaging if he is seen to be infirm by his base. Like I don't basically I'm saying I don't think it just comes from a pathological need for only positivity. It definitely does come from there, but like it's also like there's the reality that like if he's in the hospital for a week, like it looks bad for him to his base. And
yes, but I actually think the pathological part is how he got here.
Oh, yeah.
Not being more insistent about people staying away from him, not being more insistent about not having high-risk events. Because, even the high-risk events show how he is immune to it, which obviously he's not.
Yeah.
So that was deeply depressing today, I thought.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else happened today. Every day there is still a bunch of news, but like there's not like major developments because there's much of the news is more about like what we don't know. It's about like all the things that are done to like cover up the president's true condition and all the mixed messages that we've been receiving. So
I don't know. I think it's Sunday night. To your point, it's been a bit calmer, whatever that means, today, but I have a feeling it's going to be quite a week. I just am bracing myself for the week ahead.
I think you're right.
We're only 30 days to the election.
I think there's a possibility we also wake up tomorrow and he's like back in the White House and on an upward trajectory. But I think also
he will. That will be a message that comes out, is my guess. But I don't know that it's really going to be real. Like couldn't he then like faint on a stage 2 days later?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing also that people have pointed out is that dexamethasone can cause like mood swings, bouts of mania, and like changes to a person's attitude and like make them feel super, super peppy, and when you square that with the fact that he's looking like pretty good on the video today, it's like, I wonder if like we're getting a true picture of how he's actually doing. We just don't know. I just
don't know anybody's COVID symptoms. I mean, I haven't had COVID, but like it seems a little strange to like probably get it on a Saturday, test positive on a Thursday, feel really crappy on a Friday, have a cocktail of 3 different drugs over the weekend, and then Monday you're great. Like, it just, I don't know. There's something very strange about that.
I don't think he's going to be great, but I think what Conley said today is like we have like plans to discharge him and continue his care at the White House is what it was, right? So
that doesn't mean anything. That's literally just a transfer of location. Whereas Mark Meadows, by the way, there is a truly incredible article on Mark Meadows in Politico today in which everyone's wondering, why would Mark Meadows go and tell the press that, you know.
And my take home from that article was Mark Meadows is like a weird dude. That's like what I got from that article.
Well, they said in the article he is the closest thing to an actual Frank Underwood from House of Cards in DC. And so he's like playing all angles and everything is 98-dimensional chess in his head, and he like overcomplicates everything. So I can see that he had some I don't think part of his strategy was getting caught on a hot mic, but the Mark Meadows' statement was initially, although anonymous, that there was no clear path to definite recovery for Trump.
Yeah, which I took just to mean like they didn't know what was going to happen. That's what I took. Not like he was in a terrible, terrible state.
I hear that, but that's a pretty incredible thing to say.
It is.
I wouldn't say that. Like if a doctor told my mother that, like I would lose my mind. So I really feel like, given the stakes, that was shocking.
Yeah. So I would say I think the obfuscation is going to continue for quite a while, and we don't know what's going to happen. But it could be a very, very eventful week. I happen to think that he's probably on an upward trajectory, and that all these drugs and everything they're
just extra random.
Well, it's
stuff.
probably gonna like to some degree, interfere with his system and like not necessarily make it a good path, but we'll see.
Here's my question: if you are the Biden campaign, do you allow yourself to be in the same building with any of these people between now and November?
I mean,
I wouldn't.
I think is the VP debate this week. I think it's supposed to still happen. Right?
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's within 1 week.
Yeah. So it's just like,
that's just a hard pass for me. Like given how reckless all these people are.
It just feels to me like if I'm the Biden campaign, there's more to lose by being in a room with these people to debate them than to gain. Namely, you could lose
your life,
your health, by getting coronavirus from these people.
The fate of the country.
Yeah, that are clearly like very reckless. Whereas like, the thing is, the debates, like tens of millions of people do watch them, but
nobody's mind is left to make up, especially after this. And here's like oh, by the way, Bill Barr went into self-quarantine today after claiming he wasn't going to. I really do think a number of these people are quietly testing positive and no longer announcing it.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Like Chuck Grassley says he won't test for it. I wonder if he's secretly testing for it and just not going to say anything.
Well, yeah, they got to get that. They got to get Amy Coney Barrett confirmed.
Yeah, they got to get their numbers down so it doesn't look bad in the press, and
it's like freaking.
They have to keep quorum even if some of them are dying as a result.
It's just a whole like. It reminds me, like, Mitch McConnell is like Bane, He's like, in The Dark Knight Rises, he's like, when Gotham is in ashes, then you have my permission to die, basically. He's like, when this entire thing is, like, confirmed and done, then you can, like, start testing and quarantining and whatever, but not before then, because they got to get this justice through. It's a once-in-a-generation opportunity that, by the way, they jeopardize themselves because of super spreader events and not taking this whole thing seriously, so...
I want 2 layers of plexi between Kamala and Mike Pence. Like, they should not... Ugh. I'm so worried.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about tonight?
Well, tomorrow is the deadline to register to vote if you are in one of 11 major states, including Arizona, Florida, and I think Texas. And so if you have not registered to vote... but you're like, oh, I'm going to vote. Like, just check your registration. Just double check your registration. I double checked mine, yours, my parents, because things happen. People get purged from voter rolls, fascinatingly enough. And if you want to know which states those are, they are in my Twitter feed, Joy of Napping. Yeah, let's bring this home.
I'll say one other thing, which is some Trump surrogates did the morning talk shows on Sunday morning today. I think Jason Miller, I want to say. And he was still out there saying, hey, masks are not that important. You know, like they are holding the line on this. And
why?
There's no, yeah, I'm just like, when Trump first was diagnosed with COVID, Fox News did the graphics package on him, and every image they showed of him was him wearing a mask, right? Which there aren't that many of them, but they found them all, and they're like, look at him, he took every precaution. And by the way, that's another thing that they're saying now is well, this incident just shows how completely unavoidable getting COVID is. Everyone's going to get it at some point, so there's absolutely no point in trying to take any precautions whatsoever. Just be aware of the ways that this is... Yep, I know. This is going to be used as a political weapon in every some such way, and it's profoundly depressing, and there... literally, this won't even get people to change their tune on it, right? This event, you would think if anything in the world could get them to say, hey, maybe the masks are a good idea. Maybe let's start recommending people wear the masks and we don't need to exist in this living hell. The masks
don't even require economic shutdown. They don't even require sacrifice. I mean, they barely require effort. So I just really am struggling. Did you see Claudia Conway has it too?
Yeah.
I mean, that's so depressing to give COVID to your daughter.
So I think that if this is not going to get them to change their tone, nothing will. And so...
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Just assume that, A, they're not going to change their tune.
Nothing's changed.
And B, that this event will be used in the worst possible way to generate further sympathy for Trump, to further advocate for the non-scientific, anti-scientific point of view about this. It's all just going to be very profoundly depressing, I think. So that's where I am right now.
I'm more in a edge of my seat in a really bad way. You know that sour feeling you have when adrenaline wears off?
Yeah.
I sort of started to have that this evening, and I'm like, why bother? I know there will be a jolt of adrenaline when I check my phone in the morning. I know there will be something. But maybe not. Maybe there won't be unexpected natural disaster, new horrible news from the political sphere. Maybe it'll be okay.
We'll end on this good news, which is that Biden tested negative again today. So it seems like he is out of the woods.
I don't know if he's out of the woods, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
He's out of the woods from this most recent thing.
Well,
who knows what's going to happen in the future?
The longer it takes to test positive, that would show a lower viral concentration, right? So I think there's a sensitivity question. Anyway, I think that's good. That's good. I'll take that.
If you're out there, you're watching this or listening to this, hope you're staying safe, staying healthy, wearing a mask, being considerate of those people around you.
Cases are rising in at least 33 states. Prepare yourself for winter.
Winter's coming.